Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jim Nowakowski talking to you from Palatine, Illinois, Interline Creative Group. We're here to talk about staying in front of your customers in a digital environment with a special manufacturer's edition and a special emphasis on the COVID-19 that's going around today. So I'm glad you're here. It's good to see all of you. Appreciate your attendance, and we're going to have a good time. This is copyrighted by Interline Creative Group 2020, but as always, with all my webinars, when we're done, you have my email, and you're welcome to send me an email, and I'll send you the PDF files. The course description, what we did is when we created this course years ago, of course, the virus didn't exist, but we're going to talk about how you can get a better understanding of the market today, especially in regards to servicing your customers around COVID-19. You know, the virus has simply changed everything. I was in my first meeting yesterday with a client after 4 months. They invited me to come over, and it was a surreal experience. I'll get into that as we go on. But what it did is it did tell me that we have to be more and more digital than ever before. So what we're going to try to do is help you gain a better understanding of the tools available to you to keep yourself in front of these people. So we have 3 or 4 objectives. We want to review the business basics, which, by the way, they haven't changed because the virus is here. And we want to determine your value proposition. You will not, I repeat, you will not be able to do this during this course, but I'm going to give you enough information so, in fact, you can do it when we're done with the course. And I'll be happy to work with you after the course as well. And we're going to look at your differentiation, what sets you apart and what's critical today and why that's important. It's always been critical, but it's even more critical now during the virus. And we're going to review tactics on how to stay in front of your customers. I like to begin with a story. The basic story is I see some latecomers coming in to my wonderful packed room. Thank you. Hello, Mike. This poster hangs in my office, and I use this as my Rorschach test. You can blog and go on my website and read about it. But basically, I ask people when they come in, what do you see? So I'm asking you, ladies and gentlemen, what do you see? And generally, people say, well, I see 2 men talking, it's a wedding, and I keep probing and probing, because you know in a Rorschach test, there is no right answer, no wrong answer, no right answer. Inevitably, someone says the guy on the left looks like Robert Redford. Well, we had an intern during Christmas time, very smart young lady, millennial. She carried her phone over, gave her the Rorschach test. She did not say that the guy on the left looked like Robert Redford, so I had to probe her afterwards, and I said, does the guy look like Robert Redford? And she goes, who is Robert Redford? Now, when she said, who is Robert Redford, that it dawned on me that I'm dealing, either I got old suddenly, or the world changed suddenly, or something happened, because she didn't know. By the next day, of course, she knew not only who Robert Redford was, she said, I think I'd like to see the movie Jeremiah Johnson. The phone gave her access to that. She carried the phone everywhere. She actually ended up keeping a diary for me, and I learned an awful lot about the millennials and the way they think. The reason I share this with you is because in order to communicate your differentiation and your value, oh, they can't hear me. Oh my gosh, they can't hear me. I'm recording, and it's because I didn't unmute myself. Thank you, Bernie. I guess I could repeat what I said, but I'm not going to repeat it. I'm just going to tell you that the Rorschach test is, when I shared this story with people, the reason I use this as a Rorschach test is because I want to find out how people think. And what if you don't know who Robert Redford is, which is what the guy looks like, but he's not Robert Redford on the left. Everyone here needs a basis of communication. Everyone here that's in the audience today needs a basis of communication in order to communicate. Unless you have that basis of communication, you cannot communicate. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that today's basis of communication is fear. Everybody is afraid because of the virus. So you instantly have a means of communicating with everybody because that's all they talk about. The bad news is, ladies and gentlemen, is that it's a killer for business. It's a killer for business. It will kill a business when you can't just talk about a virus. So if you Google Robert Redford Rorschach, you're going to see we're number one on the Google deliverable, which is really what you want to do with your SEO. So this is very, very important. We're living in an exabyte world, and the 5 things you have to really realize about your world today with the virus surrounding us is: what are you selling? How are you sell what you're selling? Who buys what you're selling? And who doesn't buy what you're selling? And how do people buy what you are selling? And does anyone else sell what you are selling? Those questions pre and post COVID-19 are the same, except no one's buying much. No one's buying much. The world is in a horrible state for buying things, for selling things, because everybody is afraid, right? So how do you overcome fear is part of what you have, but you always had to overcome fear. Pre-COVID virus, you have to gain trust, right? Well, how do you gain trust when you have to walk into a meeting and wear a mask? You can't see the person. You can't see the person smile. I'm going to blog about this because of my first meeting yesterday, which I referred to. You understand? A mask prevents you from communicating and gaining trust, but yet everybody wants to wear a mask. It's very, very, very difficult. Very difficult. This virus thing has spread and gone and made people go bananas, hasn't it? And it keeps going now. Now we know all of a sudden 3 more hotspots. Business basics haven't changed. There used to be an ad for the old man in the chair, and McGraw-Hill would run this whenever there was a recession. There's more than a recession now. And if you were to run this ad today, in the environment you're working in today, the questions would remain the same, only that guy in the chair would have a mask on. Think about that. I don't know who you are. I don't know your company. I don't know your company's product, etc. And they would run this ad because the first thing people cut during a recession was advertising. So the moral of the story, and you can see it on the bottom of the ad on the right, sales start before your salesman calls with business publication advertising. Of course, we all know what's going on with business publication advertising these days, right? They're like turtles on their back. They don't know what's going on. Now imagine this same ad, right, with the guy now all of a sudden he's got a mask on him. And he says, through the mask, I don't know who you are. First of all, if he's got a mask on, you're going to hardly understand him because the mask is a detriment to clear communication. And how do you answer him in your mask? I don't know who, you want to know who I am? Let me tell you who I am. And you start telling him who you are, but he can't see your facial expression. You see that? So it's going to be very difficult for people who depended on personal meetings. You know what's happening to trade shows, right? They're canceling them left and right. We got an email. I speak at KBIS for the last 7 years. We got an email recently, right? And they're thinking of a hybrid show. They use the word hybrid trade show. What the heck is a hybrid trade show? Do you know what a hybrid trade show is? I gave a seminar on Tuesday, a webinar on Tuesday, and I had great attendance, great questions. One of the last questions that was asked is, my leadership is asking, what should we do until the new normal kicks in? And I answered that person with this. I said, there's no such thing as new normal. The word new normal is really, it's new as an adjective modifying normal. Right? So if it's really BS, there's no such thing. If it's not normal, ladies and gentlemen, what is it? It's abnormal. You are working in an abnormal society right now. And being abnormal, you have to start thinking abnormally. There's never going to be a normal. We're never going back the way it was. If we are, it's going to take 5 years, 10 years. And who has that amount of time? Who knows how much time you have? So you have to start thinking abnormally. And the good news is that part of the abnormalness is digital. Digital, since its inception, is abnormal. Now, Jim, what the heck are you talking about? I'm talking about reality versus non-reality. You know, there's nothing real about digital. It's all digital. You don't even know if what you're looking at or reading at is real, do you? You're taking this webinar now and I'm presenting it to you and you're looking at my slides that I created in PowerPoint and I'm talking to you via communication, but this could be a recording. You don't know, but it's not. You can tell from my voice because I'm going to entertain questions. How many customers do you have pre-COVID, post-COVID? I was talking to a friend in Florida who has a dealership, and I said, how business? And he said, without hesitation, horrible. I talked to another business on the West Coast. Horrible. You remember that great Marlon Brando movie, Apocalypse Now, I think it was, where he was standing there and he uttered the words when he was talking about his condition, the horror. The horror. That's what we're experiencing, but we have to punch through the horror. We can't let this goofy situation, this abnormal situation stop us, and business basics don't change. You have customers, and inevitably, pre-COVID, someone would say, I don't have enough customers, Jim. Guess what? Ladies and gentlemen, none of us have enough customers. How many do you want? You know what our answer is today? As many as we can get. And that's not, there's no way that you're going to get more customers than you can handle these days because nobody's buying anything, right? And if they do buy, they buy a little piece here, a little piece there. You know, the days of wine and roses are gone. You can handle what you can handle, but you must have short and long-term goals. Those basics haven't been affected by the virus. Pretend you're a customer. How often are you contacted by someone, right? Did you notice the decrease in really robocalls? I did. For 3 months it was decreasing and now they ticked up a little bit. But they're not coming in hot and heavy. Why? I have a home fax machine. I got my first fax in a 2-year period the other day. And it was selling, guess what? Seal coating for the driveway. That's my first fax in 2 years, right? Somebody's at least trying something, right? But you can't stop contacting. We're going to talk about contact strategies because you've got to keep contacting people, and you have to do it abnormally now. You can't just depend on an email. You can't just depend on a mailer. You have to be doing all sorts of things that may, in fact, seem abnormal. Like what, Jim? Like writing a letter. Writing a letter. I'm going to tell you 2 examples of a letter. What's your value proposition? Your value proposition might have been X before the virus, but it's really Y now. It's different now. You have to examine your value proposition. This was true pre-COVID. It's not about you, it's about them. But nobody knew it because everybody was happy. Everybody, oh my God, this is great. I'm in competition. It's not about you. It's about them. It's always been about them. It's even more about them now. So when I went to my first client meeting yesterday, after 3.5 months with a new client, I basically went in there and I bought a digital thermometer to make them feel safe. I was going to take my own temperature, which I did. And then I held up the mask and I said, you still want me to wear it? I was 97.1. I run low. They said, yes, please. I said, okay. And I respected that. And we sat for 2 hours in masks. And I can't tell you how uncomfortable. I wear glasses. My glasses were steaming. We had a great conversation. It was like any other meeting except for the masks. The masks changed that meeting. It did something to the meeting. And everyone I talked to afterwards says, I wish I didn't have to wear the mask. But we all wore the mask because we want to feel safe, right? So you and I and everyone else in the audience have to figure out a way to overcome the fear. To overcome the fear and redefine what safety is. Redefine Robert Redford. Learn about Robert Redford and maybe see Jeremiah Johnson if you don't know. but take into consideration what this means to business. So for example, value, you've always had value. Your customers perceive value as worth something, and most of the time they do it with you, and it's intangible. Do you know how you communicate intangible things? The same way I'm doing it now, through my voice, through my facial expressions. Well, Jim, I can't see your face, but you can hear my voice. You can hear it in my voice. You can hear facial expressions in your voice. That's why you can tell if you're on the phone, you can tell if someone's doing something else on the phone when you're talking to them. You can tell. It's in the voice. There's no way you cannot tell if you're you're an astute listener and you listen carefully. You can immediately tell when somebody stops listening to you. How do you do that with a mask on? You can't do it. You can't even understand what the person's saying sometimes. But unlike product features, your value is the feeling. The security light delivers the range adjustment, all that stuff, but it's really delivering what? Security, which is intangible. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you the most precious possession of a business meeting is the trust that you gain or lose during that meeting, and you do that through facial expressions, through gestures. And the services you're selling, that's great. It doesn't matter. I see architects and engineers. I see showroom consultants and manufacturers in the audience. It doesn't matter what you're selling. It doesn't matter. It's a byproduct of your value. For example, air. If I said, give me $10 right now for the rest of the meeting for the air you're breathing, right? If I said that to you, most of you would say, and just start, I see some people already hanging up. Come back here. I'm kidding. Some of you would just absolutely say, there's no way I'm going to give you $10. But if I had a way of taking the air away from you and suddenly asked you for the $10, for sure, you'd give me 10. In fact, I bet you I could be like Google and do a bidding situation and bid that $10 up to $100. I bet you I could do that. Don't be a commodity. By definition, value, anything of value, has to do with something that's limited. It's limited, ladies and gentlemen. You know what that means? That means it's not everywhere like air. It's air. And guess what? Safety, feeling safe, the intangible that's really rocking our world right now. It's an intangible. And you wear a mask now, theoretically, to make people feel safe, right? But it really ruins business. It ruins business because it takes away the safety of gaining trust. You can never, ever gain trust. Although physical presence helps, there's no doubt in my mind that attending that meeting yesterday helped. It was a boon to our relationship. But there's just something missing. They know it. I know it, and we all know it. It's the pleasure of a smile. It's the pleasure of frowning. I can't wait for you to read my blog. So what makes you unique? What do you do better that your competitor doesn't do? What is your competitor doing better that you don't do? Why do customers like you? These questions existed before the virus, but they have the answers are definitely different now. Why? Because of the virus. Because everybody is afraid. There's fear. You could cut, sometimes you can cut fear with a knife. Now, is the fear founded or unfounded? That's a whole nother course. That's a whole nother discussion, isn't it? But you have to decide that. And you, as a business person, have to overcome the fear. No one is going to do it for you. No one. You have to do it. And you have to figure out ways to do it. This course is about staying in front of your customers by overcoming their fear. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Because value at its essence is a perception. And once you perceive it, it's created. When I bought the digital thermometer, because my new client said, we are afraid of the virus. We're afraid of the virus. Got it. So I ran out, we bought a digital thermometer, and I was ready to take my temperature, which I did subsequently when I walked in the door. I took my temperature, as I mentioned to you. I told another client that I did this. He said, that's a great idea. I said, I don't know why it's great, but I want to make my car, well, you show your client, you're showing the client you care. Well, I've always cared about our clients. That's why we're still in business for 30 years. But we're not just in business because we care about our clients because of a virus. We care about our clients to help them sell their stuff. That's our essence. That's why we exist, to help people sell stuff. So your value, my value now is different. You have to somehow overcome that mask, overcoming the mask. Maybe that's another title because this is going to last for a while. But your value is shaped by perceptions. Yeah, I wore a mask. Yeah, I did all that to make him feel comfortable. And they did, and that's why we met for 2 hours. But I had to meet with him. I had to take my glasses off because they would steam. I put them back on. I couldn't tell when they're smiling. I couldn't get feedback from facial expressions. I had to depend on totally eye contact, which is there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot wrong with that when it comes to gaining trust and overcoming fear. And your perceptions are shaped by everything you do, not just your services, your conduct, your response, your marketing. Very, very important to remember. Where you want to be is if you take away the brand, people will find a replacement. Of course, today, brands, even though brands are important, they mean nothing now because people aren't moving, right? But if you take away value, people will protest. People want value. The problem we all face today is what the definition of value is. I assure you, by wearing a mask, bringing in my digital thermometer, I showed them that I care and that I want to help them create value and solve some of their business problems, which we did during the meeting. It was just difficult. So your value comes from your services. The digital thermometer is going to be part of my marching orders right now for a long time. And I think every sales guy, if you're going to make a personal sales guy, I would buy stock in digital thermometers because it's going to go. That's what you should be carrying now if you're a sales guy, right? That's the first thing I thought of. You need it. And of course, the mask. Banking, provider, these are people in my audience, right? Everything you do shows your value or lack of value. Do you close the office for lunch and let your voice go to voicemail? If you did that pre-COVID, fine. That says one thing about you. If you're doing that post-COVID, that says another thing about you. I don't know anyone who cannot be open 24/7 these days and expect to do business. I'm telling you right now. Those are the sacrifices we have to make. Your online presence, which we'll talk about in a moment. In other words, you add value or do you value add? Manufacturers going to and through OEMs or 2 or 3-step distribution follow the same rules of value differentiation as a business-to-consumer company. The path is the only difference. You have to gain the trust of the person. Your value comes from your differentiation. On a recent webinar with retail people, I was on a webinar with retail people, one of the learnings I took away that one company was doing that the other retailers weren't doing is they set up a chat. Well, Jim, a lot of e-commerce people are setting up chats. In fact, retail is on its back because of all the retail prohibitions because of the virus being put in. So this retailer, 9 stores only, set up a chat so that the person, thinking about buying something on the e-commerce site can talk to the sales manager in Los Angeles or New York, the people with the knowledge. How wonderful is that idea? If I can't see you and I have all the knowledge, at least you can talk to me. What a great idea for manufacturers with rep firms, isn't it? You have to stand out. You have to look different. The common denominator of everyone, if you looked at those apples before I changed one into red, is that everybody is afraid. You cannot be afraid. Adding value means you give something more, and that's okay, but you really want to have value added, which means you're adding higher value to the customer's bottom line. For example, you do more than expected. You have to be value added is the key to the puzzle. Story, process control valves, right? He was bidding on a project for process control valves. If you know anything about that type of product, you know that if the process goes down, millions of dollars are lost. So my client was actually bidding on this, and he did what they call a mean time between failure study on his valves, which were already in the manufacturer's plants. He did it out of his own pocket. He paid for it, very expensive. He went and presented his bid and added the mean time between failure study. And the manufacturer asked him, well, this is great, but what's that going to cost me? He says, nothing. I did it because I want your business. I want the rest of the valves when you build your new plant. He goes, what about the mean time between failure for the other valves of the other manufacturers that are in my plants? He says, I can't speak to that because, they're not my valves. You'd have to ask them. A month later, he got the job. He not only got the job, he got to replace all his competitors' process valves in the plants that existed. This was a 3-5 year project. That's value added. That's not just adding value. He value added his proposal. That's what you have to do today more than ever, because it's not about you. It's about them. Here's the bottom line in value. We live in a very competitive environment, and the way you communicate today is digitally. But I'm going to show you tactics that go beyond digital, because everybody's on these channels now. And remember this, if you take away the brand, they're going to find someone else. There's no question about it, if they're buying in the first place. But if you take away value, and you are of value, people will start protesting, despite the virus. Staying in front, that's the first part. Any questions? Do I see any questions? Let me take a pause. I must be doing good. I have no questions. The rest of this webinar, when we're halfway through it, I believe, we're doing wonderful on time, are the tactics to use in the COVID-19 environment to stay in front of your customers. Advertising, phone, internet. Guess what? I got a Starbucks card for anybody in the audience who can answer this true or false. Have these changed since the virus hit? True or false? These tactics have changed dramatically since the virus hit. Of course, be careful, because I only have a limited amount of Starbucks cards. They have not. They have not changed. They're the same tactics, only they're going to be used in different combinations. Or you're not going to use them at all, but they're the same tactics. Your customer is your most important product, but your website is your most important tactic to that customer. We're going to talk about that. Let's start with advertising. Advertising, print advertising is under the gun. Don't recommend it. Be careful of it. We tried, when this hit, we were trying everything. I can give you a sidebar if you want afterwards. Give me a call. I'll talk to you about all the tactics we're trying. Some work, some don't. You, as a manufacturer, have to start trying everything because you don't know what will work. Newsletters still work. Print or digital. Programs, referrals, internet, digital ads. Right? Service, letters. Look at the last bullet point. June 26th, I wrote a letter to a major manufacturer in plumbing business who was just appointed the president. Never met him. Read the release that he was appointed. Decided to contact him. Could have went through LinkedIn. Could have went through email. Could have went through all sorts of, But I wrote a letter. The letter was a 1-page letter directed to him. I sent it personal and confidential. July 3rd, he called me. July 3rd, he called me. Picked up the phone, called me. We had a 10-minute conversation. I asked in my letter for a 30-minute conversation. So I was caught off guard a little bit because I didn't have my script in front of me in my head, but I bounced back. It could have been a 2-minute call, but I stretched it to 10 and said, let me, I know you're a busy guy. Let me talk when you're not so busy. And I appreciated it, right? I then tried to link in with him, but he hasn't linked in back yet. So I sent him a second letter with a blog I just wrote. That would have never happened, I'm telling you right now, without the virus being present. If the virus wasn't present, that letter would have got to him and nothing would have happened because the guy doesn't need to talk to me. He doesn't need to talk to anybody because pre-COVID, he's got enough on his plate. He's already got enough on his plate now, but now he's got even more than enough. But what I said in that letter made him pick up the phone and call me and thank me for writing the letter. He says, I'm going to keep your letter on my desk. I can't ask for any more than that. And if something happens, fine. And if nothing happens, fine. A yes and no in my world of direct marketing has always been equal. Only no's hurt more. But I would say a phone call is a yes. It's a potential yes. And what are we going to do together? I'm just going to talk to him once he calls again, or I call him and we contact again, on what he needs help in. I had a client the other day who's really undergoing a massive change in his company. He wants a move, right? He wants to change jobs. I said, you're one of the most connected people I know on LinkedIn. He goes, yeah, but I've never asked anybody for anything in my life. Think about that statement. I've never asked for anything from anybody in my life. Who amongst us can say that? And I said to my friend and client, I said, I'm always asking for stuff. He said, no, you're not. No, you're not. I said, I just asked you for business. He says, that's different. I go, what's different about it? I'm going to give you a secret now that you can write down. The greatest question you can ask anybody, is how can I help you? How can I help you? Forget about what you're selling, whether you're a showroom consultant or whatever. You're selling, process control valves, whatever. How can I help you? How can I help you? The UPS guy, asked that of his clients, Siemens, very large company, right? How can I help you? The Siemens guy was telling him that he's building a downlink. He's trying to do, satellite to Earth communications. They're trying to build a hub for communications, from space down to Earth. And, it's very difficult, very expensive, but they want to do this to communicate better. The UPS guy says, well, this is great. He says, why don't you let me help you and design that? Because that's what we do. That's what we do. We build these communication uplink downlinks because we're UPS. We have to communicate quickly, neatly, efficiently, right? And of course, the Siemens guy goes, well, it's pretty costly. We're looking at a lot of money here. He says, I'll do it to you for nothing. I'll do it for you for nothing. Really. Of course, when you ever hear it, I'll do it to you for nothing, there's always like, yeah, right. So the Siemens guy says, well, if you want to do it, okay. So he did it. To do this the right way is over $200,000. But the UPS guy, UPS, not the guy, but the company did it. They did the strategy. They helped them with the technology, and they did it, right? They did it. The guy was grateful. He says, what are you going to charge? The guy said, nothing. I told you, we're doing this because you are a good UPS customer. The next year, the business between them increased $1 million. You think that's an accident? You think that's a coincidence? You think that's just luck? This is what I'm talking about with adding value. A letter, a well-written letter, and that's why I know our value. Our value is simple here at Interline. We have unduplicated knowledge and we have service. Those are our two pillars, right? We express those through action. Through the techniques I'm showing you now. So I'm just saying, if you examine your value and you have your value, one of the ways to communicate that value is a well-written letter. The second letter I wrote was last Thursday, a week ago Thursday. One of my account executives said, you should write this guy a letter. So I wrote him a letter. He calls me Friday morning. I sent the letter Thursday night, personal confidential, right? He gets it the next morning. He's on the phone calling me. He said, Jim, do I know you? Do I know you? Are you my customer? Did I screw up? I said, no, not at all. I wrote you this letter because I want to have a 30-minute conversation with you. Oh, what about? I said, well, about conditions. I said, I think you're the VP of sales. You got a lot on your plate with this virus thing. The way people sell nowadays is going to be totally changed. I just want to know what you're doing and if there's any way we can help you or what kind of help you need. Can you? Because I'm not in the office. My secretary called me and said, I got this letter and your cell phone number is in there. It was a great conversation. I scanned the letter, sent it to him, an email. Now we're going to connect. Hopefully. If we do, great. If we don't, that's okay too. These are the tactics. They are abnormal. Writing a letter today is abnormal, isn't it? Who writes letters? 2 for 2 is 100%. The most important thing to understand is your overall audience is there. Some people will see your message. Some people will convert. How many emails do you still get? Even though it's declined since the virus, right? How many emails do you think your target gets? You want to be one of many? Or do you want to stand out with a letter? You see what I'm saying? Because some people will see what you say, some people will convert to readers, and some people will even inquire and pick up the phone and make a call or write back to you. This has always been true before the virus. It's absolutely even more true now, except your audience has shrunk. Most of the people are afraid. That's why digital has skyrocketed. Because they don't think they can, it's virus-free. The digital world is virus-free, isn't it, right? Of course it is, but it's also business-free. When you're online doing things, you're not doing it the same way. Don't get me wrong. I'm gathering a lot of knowledge on webinars. But what the common thread is on all the webinars I attend, and I attend a lot of webinars, much more so now that our clients are shutting down or have shut down and are just coming back. And what the common thread is, and if you don't know this by now, shame on you, is everybody is just simply afraid. They don't know what to do. An example. I'm not going to tell you who this company is, but they're a major research company in the United States, if not the world. Their name starts with a G. That's all I'll tell you. So I attended one of their webinars, and they came across with this profound insight. They were talking about how managers should really communicate despite the virus, even though everybody's working from home. Managers have an important duty to communicate with their employees, and they must do this. And as they communicated this, of course, what you found out later is that they were basically selling, something, a concept software. We're not going to talk about that. But one of the profound insights they delivered to me, I want you to write this down. Positive reinforcement works better than negative reinforcement. When I heard that, ladies and gentlemen, I said to myself, really? I learned that in college when I was studying guidance techniques to be a teacher. I learned that when my mother, said, Jimmy, take your hands off the stove. And instead of slapping me, she let the stove burn my fingers at my own pace, you see. So positive reinforces, I never touched the stove after that. Positive reinforcement works better. Negative reinforcement works faster. I needed them to tell me that. I needed them to also tell me that you should communicate, a manager should communicate with their employees. Really? Really? The point I'm making is that no one knows. They don't know any more than you do. They are trying to understand it. And if you try to understand it, I'm suggesting respectfully, your understanding is going to probably be better than their understanding. Because they're off in Never Never Land. If you're telling people positive reinforcement is more, I've attended webinars with construction statistics, right? They're talking about the construction market, which is where we play, right? In every economic construction webinar I've attended, you know what the conclusion is? We don't know what's going to happen. Really? I need you to tell me that? I don't need you to tell me that. I want to know what's going to happen, right? And if you can't tell me what's going to happen, I guess I'll have to figure it out myself. That's what you have to do. You have to sit down and try to figure it out yourself because they're not going to tell you. Use zip code analysis. Analyze your file. Inspire. Participate. Half of your brain responds to visuals. Be visual. Don't say, ready, fire, aim, fire again. It's no longer ready, aim, fire. Ready, fire. Just keep doing things. You got to keep trying and testing. The phone is, in my opinion, it's always been a gift because you can, like I said before, you can tell when people are not listening to you. I don't need GoToMeetings to tell me when my audience is not listening to me. They flash a little sign that tells me you're doing something else. And that's okay. I don't mind it. You can't hold everyone's attention for an hour. It's very difficult. I get it. But you're listening, I hope, right? Until the beginning of the night when I had myself on mute, then I apologize. But when I record this, you'll be able to hear it. So survey people after the sale. I was on a meeting with designers the other day, and I blogged about it, the IFDA. And I learned a lot just by listening, right? So they use the phone. They hold the mask up when the interior designers are still selling. They hold the mask up, say, "You want me to wear it or not wear it?" And most of their customers, according to what they were saying, say, "Don't wear it," which is great. That's great to know that they're doing business. They're trying. Cold call people. Talk to them. People will talk to you. You know how you get people to talk to you? I could use your help. It's the same thing I told my friend to ask. Say, how can I help you? Right? How can I help you? The other way to do it when you're on the phone is, I need your help. I don't know anybody of any consequence when you ask them that question that they will say, I don't need your help. And if they do say, can you help me? I don't have time to help you. Go to the next one. People are generous with their time when you need their help. And boy, by God, I need everyone's help in understanding this crazy environment we're working in, and so do you. So have conversations. You'll be surprised at what you learn. You'll be very surprised. Call a radio program. Radio programs are always taking calls. I call radio programs. I laugh sometimes. Sometimes they're about silly topics, right? Silly topics. Respond to something. Don't just sit there. Respond to it. Paint a picture with your voice. How am I doing? I'm trying to paint a picture with my voice. Some people, they can't wait for me to get a door in my office because we're moving our offices around. We're restructuring like everyone else should be doing. So paint a picture with your voice and call people back no matter what. Call people back no matter what. The client sent me an email the other day and said, this was at 4:57. By the time I saw the email, it was already 5:45, an hour later. I called him, left him a voicemail. Even if he was having dinner, I didn't care with his family. I called him, and the next day I called him very early. He picked up the phone. He says, I'm sorry I didn't return your call last night. I said, you didn't have to. I didn't call expecting to be even answered, but I wanted to let you know that I got your email and I'm responding to you. How far does that go in helping the relationship? Well, Jim, it doesn't go very far sometimes because you were trying to bother him. My wife always tells me, why do you call so late? Why do you call so late? I call so late because I want to be responsive to the customer, to the client. And if they didn't want me to be responsive like that, they don't take the call. Or they press on their phone, I can't talk now, right? You have those automatic messages if you have a smartphone, don't you? Your website is your most important asset, tactic, strategic benefit. 70% of people who are looking for what you do go to Google first. If 70% of people go to Google first and you're not on page one, You're not. You don't want to be a gnat. You want to be on page one. That's why you must study SEO. You must do SEO. I've got a couple of blogs on SEO, search engine optimization. If you don't know what that is, you better learn what it is, and you better start practicing it. And I'm going to give you an example right now. I was basically in a meeting the other day, and my client was basically telling me that he was asked to lower his price. Everybody's asked to lower your price. I said, Tony, I've got a great idea for you. Tell your customer to Google never lower your price. He says, what are you talking about? I said, Google never lower your price. So when you Google never lower your price, what do you think happens, ladies and gentlemen? My blog shows up on page one and it's in the number one slot of Google. I own those words. And in that blog, it says never lower your price, and completing the headline says always add value. Never lower your price. Google thought enough of it to make it number one in the search for those words. Do you know how incredibly impressive that is? Even though it's not, because it's just SEO. But you know how, and so he did it, and instantly he saw it, and he said, oh, there it is. Now, whether or not he told his customer why he should never lower the price, that's not my problem, right? But I was able to help my client understand never lower your price by putting my words into an actionable item called a blog that people can find, and it's on our website. Your website is critical to your success. Even pre-COVID, your website was critical to your success. In post-COVID, when the normal comes around, whatever that's going to be, right, in 5 years, because it's going to take years, your website will still be the most important asset you have because everybody now is digital. It's not going to do away with in-person meetings. It's not going to do away with it. But it's going to be very, very important to how people judge you. So make sure your website is in great shape. Always be fine-tuning it. The way you fine-tuning it is with content. Pour your heart's content onto your websites. Go around the internet, look at other than my industry website. This is one of my favorite techniques. By the way, there's my blog on our website, How Do You Implement SEO? I like to look outside my comfort zone. I like to be uncomfortable. Do you like to be uncomfortable? The reason I like to be uncomfortable is because what I could do then is see how other people are doing it with a free mind. Well, I don't like that because that's really not my market. Well, that's good sometimes. One of the things that was clear in the meeting yesterday is that we are not in this guy's market. We were, but we're not anymore. So I had semblance of knowledge, right? Some semblance of knowledge. But because we were not in, we were the outsiders, it was a great, great meeting, despite the masks. Because we were able to offer unduplicated knowledge. So for example, when they were discussing how to handle leads, do they put them through distribution or sell direct? And they were arguing about that for a while. Not arguing, but discussing it. I said, why don't you let the customer that called you decide how he would like to handle that? Buy from you direct or buy from one of your distributors. President of the company looked at me and said, that's why you're here. Right? That's an outside perspective. It's something we've learned many, many, many years ago. But by being on the outside coming in, a lot of times companies, great companies, all great companies, and all companies are great that are companies, right? Mostly. When they get into their zone and they don't leave that zone, they forget there's other things you can talk about and other solutions that are possible. Why we're still standing, why Interline and Accountability and all our companies are still standing in this COVID environment is because we know and have practiced staying outside the fray. The minute you go into the fray, you start thinking like the customer, you become a victim of the customer's thinking. That's an improvement. That's absolutely will stop you from innovating. That will stop you from thinking, as they say in the cliche, outside the box. If you're in the box, you cannot be thinking outside the box. Think about that. Jim, I was told, let's think outside the box. How can you do that if you're in the box? You have to leave the box. That's what you have to do. That's what I'm telling you to do. Leave the box behind. And do social media, and do it often. Well, Jim, there's too much. I can't stand it. Do it. You know why you should do it? Because social media is a listening tool. It's not a broadcast media. It's not like television. It's not like your website. It's listening. You listen. It's a listening tool. A great salesman, unlike, I'm presenting now, so it's a monologue. The greater the salesman, the more quiet and listening he does. The more he listens or she listens. Do a video. Become mobile. Videos are very important. PR cannot be understressed. Community events, schools, associations. Work with someone, right? Travel with a vendor. Speak at conferences. Become an expert. All these things. Press release. You can't have enough content. The other thing to SEO besides content is linking. You want to be linking back to your website. You want to be linking to things within your website. Link to and from your website. Google loves linking. They love it. Do something for the community and tell people why you're doing it. Just do it. Get it covered. Join an organization. Organizations have shut down, Jim. They're not having meetings. Well, they must have virtual meetings. I know associations are having virtual meetings. I know they are, right? Civic organizations have meetings. Get in there and join those meetings. Participate in them and never send anything out without a picture. And most important, start your own YouTube channel. Start putting those videos on YouTube. It's very, very important. And if a crisis does come up, deal with it quickly. Don't let it fester. That's what PR is about. Crisis PR, they call it. My blog, Selling the Why and Why It Ain't So, is based on Simon Sinek's Selling the Why. Very good TED Talk. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. But it's always, today, Simon can take a hike. Because basically, it doesn't matter the what, the why, the where, the how. Nobody is moving. Nobody's buying anything. You have to make them buy something, and you're better off making them. You're more likely to make them buy if you talk about the why. If you give examples of yourself, why this worked, why this doesn't work. You have to give of yourself in order to attract people to you. It's like a relationship. You have to give, not just take. For example, Selling the Why, if you look at Simon Sinek, you could do that. I would not recommend television. Look at what streaming is doing to television. Netflix, right? It's crazy, isn't it? So start your own channel on YouTube. Do it yourself. People appreciate that. Billboards. We weren't driving for a while, right? So can you imagine the people who bought billboards and everybody shut down? We did a mailing. We did a direct mailing when this happened, Has the world lost its marbles? And we sent a bag of marbles to all of our clients. And I think we had 97 people we sent it to. Right? We're a small Midwest company, right? 15 people here. We had 97 clients we sent this to. I expected a terrific reaction because it was a reminder, let's keep our marbles and keep on marketing because, let's just do it. And they had a list of our services. It was very simple. It was a 3D thing because I put marbles in a bag, right? I got one call. One call. I expected not just to get called and say, look at this. This is clever. This is great. Glad you're there. I can't wait for the virus to be over. Conversations, engagement. One call. Then I realized our mistake. They stopped going to the office. And I didn't have many of their home addresses. So I called them and said, when you get back to the office, watch for the marbles. And they said, what are you talking about? And then I explained what I said. I said, I just sent some marbles in case you lost yours. And we laughed. I didn't call everybody, but I did call the people that I expected a reaction with, right? That's what you have to do. You have to adapt. Anticipate, react, adapt. This is the greatest strategy written by Alexander. I have a whole course on that. Integrate, differentiate, look around and ask questions. Why are people doing these things? And then the most important thing you can take away from today's webinar, ladies and gentlemen, is do the unexpected. The digital thermometer was unexpected, and it made a terrific impression. Do the unexpected. When you do the unexpected, you make people sit up and take notice. Notice, I didn't say do something stupid. One of the rules we have of social media for our writers here at Interline, we have only one rule when we're doing social media for our clients. And I'm going to share that rule with you now, and you can share it with your team. You ready? Don't do anything stupid. If you follow that rule, your social media will be exceptional. Of course, you have to define what stupid is. And if you look around social media, you know what stupid is. It's pretty apparent. But if you do the unexpected, that will make people sit up, take notice, and remember, do it fast because it only lasts a moment in these day and age. So, we're coming to the end. Remember your ABC. Always be closing, cross-selling, listening. If you hear an opportunity for another business, share it with that business. Become a referral and network. So to stay in front of your customers, know who you are. Determine your value. My poem, very famous, he who has the thing to sell and goes and whispers in a well, is not so apt to get the dollars as he who climbs a tree and hollers. I did not look at the screen when I read that to you. It is embedded in my memory. Because it's not only what you put in front of them, it's when and how much and how often. You know, ladies and gentlemen, we were discussing this earlier this week in my office. Timing is critical in business. Perhaps sometimes timing is more important than anything else. But you know what's even more important than timing? Speed. You know where I learned that? From the Navy SEALs. I read Lone Survivor, Marcus Luttrell. The SEALs value strength, but they value speed more than strength. Speed, timing, striking while the iron is hot, very, very important. Questions? I'm going to look now for raised hands in my little screen here, and hopefully you've got some questions. Any questions? Oh, please ask a question. No, I'm kidding. I guess not. I guess I did my job. I have 3 questions for you. If you answer these questions and send them to me, how do you deal with the declining client interactions due to the onslaught of online because of the virus? What is a clear brand message that would attract the right clients to your business? And what are the top companies in your field doing that you are not but could be doing? Think about these questions. Especially that last question. Do you know what the top companies in your field are doing? Nothing. You want me to repeat that? Look at the top companies in your business right now and ask yourself, what are they doing that you're not, that you could be doing? Especially in this business environment. Thank you very much. Any questions? My email address, Jim@Interline Group, Jim@Interline Group. My phone number is 847-358-4848. You're welcome to call me anytime to discuss anything you want. If you go to evaluate, /evaluate, interlinegroup.com, evaluate for our guides. I'll give you a set of our 8 guides, which are all of our courses are based on, and please follow me on Interline Jim. You can also go to the Continuing Architect, which has 6 of my courses online. I'm very honored that they're there. And I wish all of you the best of luck. Thank you so much for tuning in.